All right, and welcome back to the Definitive Cinematic Retrospective here. I'm your host, Cohen Phillips, and tonight we've got a really special guest here on the program that's going to talk about a film that's celebrating its 30th anniversary already. 30 years already? This is crazy. Anyway, the one, the only, the multi-talented Victoria Rowell. Hello, Miss Victoria.
Hi, Cohen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the program here, Barb Wire. That's specifically what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I know you have. I don't mean to skim over your career at all by just singling in on this
No,
one,
go ahead,
this one
skim
movie.
away, skim away.
But because seriously, you have been in some huge film and television and entertainment, and so we
Yeah,
just thank you so much for coming on and just talking specifically about the movie here tonight, Barbed Wire.
thank you, Barb Wire. Sure.
So your character, Victoria, Dr. Cora Devonshire, she represents the resistance in a city that has largely given up. When you first read that script of Barbed Wire, you stepped onto the set of Steel Harbor. Did that atmosphere of grit and decay, did that help you tap into Cora's desperation? And did it feel as oppressive in person as it looked on screen?
I don't think it got that heavy for me, to be honest with you, Cohen. I was thrilled that I had booked another movie and that I was working with some fabulous actors. Chimura, as you know, obviously Pamela Anderson, who was such a delight to work with, and we'll get into more of that later. But the location manager was brilliant. The location was, I think we were shooting somewhere around San Pedro, and it was an abandoned warehouse, a factory-esque complex, and it was decaying, and it was very oppressive. So that did lend itself, obviously, to the work.
Absolutely, absolutely. No blue screen there. You can see everything right there. That's awesome.
Right.
So, so like you'd mentioned, hey, some of your actors, your fellow actors, that emotional core of your journey is your relationship with Axel, played by Tamora Morrison. And how did you work to establish that sense of kind of history and that shared sacrifices between your characters? Was there a specific moment during filming where it was kind of like us against the world dynamic that really solidified it?
It's kind of a split question. First, I want to address working with the actors. Chamora and I were blessed to have Harry Abrams as our agent, Abrams Artists. And I'm still in touch with my agent, who I met over 30 years ago because Harry also had a New York City office and always had, he was more of a boutique agency. He wasn't a CAA, he wasn't a Williams. Harry Abrams had Abrams Artists, and it was a beautiful agency. And it was a nice happenstance that Tamura and I shared that commonality. Number one, he was absolutely delicious to work with, so lovely, a gentleman, and taught me a lot about the Maori and uh, the tribe from which he comes from, and talking about New Zealand. And it was not just being on the set, is what I'm trying to say, Cohen. There was a relationship that was developed not only with Tamora but also with Pam Anderson. And when we came back to do reshoots, I was well pregnant. I was pregnant while I was shooting with my son. And I had, when they said, we need to do some reshoots, many months later, I said, I'm actually pregnant. And so they put me in that big green jumpsuit. But Pam was also pregnant. So we shared that as well. Um, Back to the other part of your question, there was a camaraderie, obviously, within the storyline. But if you want to go deeper, I'll wait for more questions. But we worked
Sure.
very well
No,
together.
yeah, see that's what I want. I love the behind the scenes how this movie got made, and then also just the relationships behind the movie. Everybody has such high praise, everybody that I've interviewed so far, about everyone that they've worked with on this film. So, I enjoyed it at a young age, and I think that comes through on screen. And it's just great to hear it from the people that were involved in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, it was, it was a gritty set, as we've already discussed. But Pam's really funny, She's funny. And I remember her mother coming to the set, and she just was so delightful. And Pam was so excited to introduce her to everyone. Pam, what I like about Pam is that she's got a small town, down to earth personality in a very big industry. And I'm a farm girl from Maine. So we had that, if you will, in common. And I appreciated that, and how much she loved her mother and visiting. I'm sure she still does, but I mean, it was just really
Right.
cool.
Right, that's right. So, I mean, but at this time, yeah, I mean, Baywatch and everything was all at the height of her popularity. So, for her to still have those homegrown roots like that is really awesome. Really awesome. All right, and welcome back to the Definitive Cinematic Retrospective. And tonight we've been talking about Barb Wire, which celebrates its 30th anniversary this year. Can't believe it's already been 30 years. But somebody that doesn't look 30 years older is joining me tonight to talk about the movie. It's Mr. Jack Noseworthy. Jack, thank you so much for being on the program tonight.
Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so wow, I mean, this is crazy. It's been, you've been part of a lot of massive productions. I mean, that's lightly putting it, sir. You've had a great career, but specifically with Barbed Wire, it has a very specific 90s cyberpunk aesthetic to it. And what was your first impression when you read that script or you stepped onto the set of Steel Harbor? Did it feel as gritty and as immersive in person as it looked on screen?
The first impression I had when I read the script was that I thought it really sort of captured that, graphic novel, and the idea that this could be adapted into a movie in what would be a really fun, and an authentic way to what the graphic novel was. So that's the thing that I think impressed me the most. And just the character was really interesting. I play a blind alcoholic mechanic, in this futuristic world, and so I thought when I first walked onto the set that they really captured those visuals. It was we shot in Long Beach. The exteriors were shot in Long Beach, and then the bar. The majority of my part takes place in the bar, and then eventually when my character gets killed, I'm sort of hung up on a meat hook. But I thought that again it was like in the Navy Yard in Long Beach, and so it really was very realistic. And David Hogan, the director, was the way he lit the show. He was a video director for a long time and a second unit director, and he really was able to capture some incredible visuals. And I think that was the sort of genesis for that were the locations and the set that was built. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely came through on set there. So Charlie, your character right here, as we can see him, he's featured on the German poster.
I can't
there.
see that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's right there. Though you are right there, and
I'll have to
has
look
a
that
glimmer
up.
has a glimmer on his sunglasses there. But Charlie is really the only person who can get through to Barb. And how did you and Pamela Anderson work together to build that brother-sister chemistry? Was there a specific moment during filming where you felt that protective, sibling dynamic really click?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the reasons that that we clicked really well is, first of all, she told me that I looked just like her brother. So I apparently I look very much like her actual brother, which was I think for her a way to create a fondness, right? So there was just this immediate connection just based on the fact that I I was similar to her own sibling. So for her, you'd have to ask her that. But I'm assuming that that's true. And I think for me, really, she was really at the height of her popularity in that time of her career. She's obviously had multiple incarnations of popularity. That she's certainly having a huge resurgence right now, and she's a really terrific person, right? And rightfully so. That Pamela's stayed in our sort of social consciousness in her work and her advocacy, right? So she's a great human being, and I'm very fond of her. So but at that time, she was still dating Tommy Lee, and so she was a paparazzi's darling long before we had cell phones and the kind of reach that people had when you have your phone now. So I can remember filming and being in our trailers, and we had to put up Dubatine and hide any and block any ability for the paparazzi who were on long lenses, 100, 200, 400 yards away on long lenses hiding in the hills to shoot, to try to capture images of Pam and her wardrobe or costume or anything to do with the set. So I think any kind of affection or thoughts around that would transfer into the character building was that I did feel terrible for her and having to manage that when she just wanted to come to work and wanted to do a great job, which she did, and wanted to be part of the making of this movie in a way that was authentic and real to her. So I think if there was anything for me, I felt a kinship and a sense of protection over wanting to make sure that she could have the environment she needed to have in order to perform at the best of her ability, which she did every day.
Yeah. So, and having that first impression that you did remind her of your brother, that you got off on the right foot right there. It's like, so.
Yeah.
Now the film, of course, it's famously set in the distant future of 2017.
Yeah.
Now that we've already passed that, we've actually lived through that time. Looking back at the tech and the politics of the movie, what do you think the production got right? And maybe what part of the future makes you laugh the most today?
Well, I think initially they got right the eye scan, right? Because we have right now we have Clear. You go to the airport and so that they definitely got right. Which was a big part for my character, right? Because they couldn't scan my eyes because I was blinded by a grenade that went off, right?
Exactly.
And so that was something that I really felt like they landed, and somebody was really thinking ahead. What they got wrong. Geez, I'm kind of a half full guy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure they got anything wrong. I think they got it all right.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So now we just got to go back one more time here. You're filming in 95, 96. And did you have any inkling that we might still be celebrating this film 30 years later? And what do you think it is about Barb Wire that has allowed it to transition from, a major movie into this beloved, permanent cult classic?
I think because it was a graphic novel that had that had a huge fan base, and the character is likable by, all genders, right? So, certainly at that time we were focused on male and female, and this idea that she was exciting and almost unapproachable for men, but also the ultimate feminist standing up for herself and having being her character was much deeper than she appeared on the surface, and her ability to actually navigate and understand that the way that she looked was a very much on the surface of who she really was, and she was in control of being able to utilize the way she looked in order to get things done for a larger group of people, right? So she was really, I think the character really was standing up for the resistance and standing up, fighting against something, which, when you look at Pamela and you look at what she's done for PETA, when you look at now what she's done for, her natural look that she chooses to have now, and how she's really been ahead of the curve and she stands up for people. If you I don't know if we thought about that back then, but you can see that there were similarities in the character, and I would say because of that, and again, really because of Pamela's longevity, I think that has been very, very advantageous to the film and why it's been able to maintain such longevity.
Sure, exactly, exactly. The film has beautiful people, great looking sets, but then underneath it, it has those messages and tones that can be timeless, and that's why it's sustained. That whenever you revisit again, if you look beyond the surface, it has some really good messaging to it. So, and that's why I said I'm a big fan of it as well, and things. And thank you so much again for joining me here, answering a few questions about the movie. Is there anything you'd like to add or share with us before we go?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you also, you can't really talk about the film without talking about the other actors, right? I mean, we had Tamora Morrison, who's such a phenomenal actor, and Victoria Rowell and Udo Kier, who just passed away recently, and Xander, right? Xander Berkeley was great in the film. Like this was a really good cast of really talented actors that signed on to tell this futuristic story. So I think that also has something to do with it resonating, is because every single person in the film is recognizable from some other genre of work or some other film or television series. And so I think that you can't negate that in being a factor as to why the film continues to be have a fondness for people.
Exactly. I'm so glad you mentioned that, and I am in the pursuit of all those that you had named to come and talk about the movie 30 years later here. So you're right, that ensemble cast, led by Pamela, but then surrounded by that hedge of great actors, it stands up, and you can
Yeah.
just tell everybody seems to be having fun with the movie. I think so,
Yes. Yeah. I think we all understood what the assignment was.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So, well, Jack, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If people do want to find out more about you or anything, can they do that? Can they follow you on social media? Or
Yeah. Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at Jack / Noseworthy at Instagram. So
there we go. All right, everybody, that's great. So, Jack, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and have a good rest of your week. Okay, sir. Thank you.
thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your time. Thanks.